Okay, so who else struggles with feeling like things are out of control? Because I tell you what, in this weird moment of history that we're living through with coronavirus and social distancing, and in the UK here with this partial lockdown, I dare say every one of us has got a sense that there's stuff that's just happening that's beyond our control. And if there's one thing I know from stuff that I've been through, it's that when stuff's happening that we just can't stop and just want to stop, but it's totally beyond our control to change it, it's one of the hardest things there is to cope with. And I've actually been feeling very grateful today for the fact that because of things I've been through in the past, I've got so many coping mechanisms in my hand right now to cope with this really unusual situation that's going on, because in a way it's not new for me. Because for those of you who maybe don't know this about me, I was bedridden for 9 years, housebound for even more years. And for me, the restrictions we're going through right now actually don't feel anywhere near as restricted as living in a darkened room where I didn't even see sunlight for 9 years, where I couldn't even go downstairs in my own house, and where I couldn't even feed myself and had to be spoon-fed. But although that situation was more dramatic on one level, what was different about it was I was going through that all by myself and most people around me were getting on with normal life. But in this situation at the moment, we're all going through this. Not even just people in our nation, other people who are my friends on social media will be listening to this who live in other parts of the world who are going through exactly the same thing. And that's why tonight I just felt so strongly I wanted to make a little video, because it's one thing for me to have those coping mechanisms in my hand, but if those coping mechanisms helped me through isolation, through fear, through dealing with illness, through having a lowered immune system where I had to put protection to avoid any virus that might be going on out there, and all the other things that are coming with the situation at the moment, then why shouldn't I be sharing those with all of you in case it can help even just one of you? And so I have a feeling that the video I'm making tonight might actually be the first of more than one video that I'm going to make, because instead of just giving a list of coping mechanisms, I think it would be far better if I just deal with one coping mechanism tonight and then deal with another one another night, and just see what I can give out there that might just help and encourage you. And so tonight, the one that really springs to mind is related to that sense of feeling totally out of control. And you know, the night in February 2002 when I just suddenly woke in agony, not knowing that my whole life was going to change that night, the feeling I felt more than anything was feeling totally out of control. And I'm sure you can associate with how there are so many things that we've always been able to rely on that we can't rely on right now. Even just simple things like getting a supermarket slot to have our food delivered has become a really difficult thing. And so for me, the biggest thing of all that helped me to deal with feeling out of control was when I learned what for me is a 3-step process. And which steps you do in which order can vary here, because for me, the first step generally is to look at what I can't control. Now, for some of you, you might be feeling so overwhelmed by what you can't control that you don't want to look at that as your first step. And if that's the case, that is absolutely fine. You do step 2 as your first step and do this as your second step. But I'm just going to tell you them in the order that I normally do them. Because you see, the way I'm wired is I tend to be the sort of person that when I see a problem, I want to tackle it head on. And so I tend to take down the thing that is draining me, the thing that is worrying me, the thing that is bothering me first, and then bring in the really positive stuff. But there are times when I can feel overwhelmed too, and where I'll bring in the positive stuff first. And so what I tend to do if I'm in that tackle it head on mode is I actively think about the things in the situation that I genuinely cannot control. And that might sound counterintuitive, but I tell you what, when you begin to actively think about what you can't control and then make a decision not to waste your energy on stuff that is not going to make any difference, that you can think about, you can worry about, but is not going to change a thing, and then you decide that you are not even going to try and control that stuff, then sometimes just that step alone of acknowledging that you're feeling out of control and that you can't control those things, and then of letting them go, is actually like letting go of trying to spin all the plates and feel like you have to be the one that just keeps that plate spinning and that plate spinning has to hold them all up. And just the relief sometimes of laying down the plates that you can't possibly spin no matter how much you try is actually a huge relief. And so for me, often that is step one. Step two for me tends to be to then really focusing on the positives. Because now that I've put those negatives out the way, I know that my brain's not going to keep reminding me, yeah, but you can't this and you can't that. I've put those aside. In fact, sometimes when I put those aside, I even write them down, and I have a little tin that has a lid on it. And if I feel like I'm going to struggle to set those things aside, I'll put those little slips of paper inside the tin and I will put the lid on and I will say I've acknowledged them, but I'm not going to get them back out the tin. I have laid those things aside because I can't control those things. And then I begin step two, which is to focus on the things that I can genuinely do. And you know, there'll always be circumstances that we can't change. But the most important thing we can do in any circumstance, including this one, is we can choose our response and we can change our response. And you know, when I first took ill, one very key decision I made was that it would not make me bitter, it would make me better. And you know, that decision helped me time after time to get through. And it's the same in this situation, that we can decide that we're going to find someone to blame, that we're going to be angry with whoever's fault this is. Was it someone in China? Is it the government's fault that they didn't bring measures in sooner, or they did it different to another country? And this is not a political statement from me at all. You'll not get that from me. What you're getting from me here is saying that we can either waste our strength and our energy on trying to blame someone, and that is all that will do. It will waste our strength and energy. Or we can focus on the things we genuinely can do, including how we choose to respond. And we are seeing amazing things of how people are choosing to respond positively. We're seeing people, so many people volunteering to help the NHS. We're seeing people who are helping neighbours out with shopping. We're seeing people who are looking out for each other. You know, in our area, there's this amazing Facebook group going on where people are doing all sorts of little things, even just making phone calls to people who are lonely and isolated and, you know, just struggling and just need to hear a human voice. And so those are things we can do. And actually something we can do, and again, I'm not trying to sound like a political announcement here, but we can either look at the updates we get every night on the news as restrictions upon us, or we can choose to look at them as empowerment of telling us some things we can do. And I don't know that I've ever known a global situation where we are being told so much of something we can do that will make a genuine difference, because we've seen that when we do socially distance and when we do stay at home and work from home if we can possibly work from home and do all these different steps we're being told to take, that actually in other countries it has helped slow the course of the virus. It has flattened the curve, as we're all hearing. And I'm not here to go on about that. We've all heard that information. But you see, if you look at it as a restriction, it will bring one response. If you look at it as an empowerment, that actually it's not just something you have to do. It's a way that you can actually make a difference and change the course of what's happening, even though you can't see the results of that yet. Then just that change in thinking can help alone. And, you know, there are other practical things we can do. It's for each of us to think of the things in our own life that we can do. You know, there might even be some of you who, awful though it is, that it's a struggle to get as much food as we'd like at the moment, as easily as we would like. There might be some of you who want to lose weight and could see that as a positive thing you can do to help yourself be healthy. And, if the virus does come your way, to be, more fit and healthy to handle that. And similarly, no judgment in this, but there might be some of you who smoke right now and it's hard to get hold of cigarettes, who could actually put the money into a jar each week that you would have spent on cigarettes and save that as money that you will do stuff with your kids or with whoever you would like to do something with when this is all over, and also have the benefit that you gave up smoking during a time when you won't be out there to be grumpy with everyone while you're giving up smoking. And those are just daft examples, but each of you, I'm sure, can think of ways that there are things you can do to make a difference in this situation. And if you're struggling to do that, either talk to someone in your own house, or there's all sorts of ways that we're very fortunate to be able to keep in touch with people. See if there's someone you can talk to who might give you ideas of things they're doing, or that you can talk to who might suggest things they can see in your life that you could do, that is something you can do, something where you can have some control. And in a daft way, when everyone was buying huge amounts of toilet roll, we could look at that and it seemed irrational in some ways, but actually behind it, I saw that some of those people who were doing that, it was just a way to try and find a little bit of control over something they could control. They could physically go into a supermarket and spend money and try and throw that at the problem, even though toilet rolls are not going to save us from coronavirus. And so look at what you can't control and let go of it. Look at what you can control and what you can do, and take positive steps to focus each day on the things you can do. And for me, there's a third step. And for some of you, this may not be a one that you would naturally think to do, because pretty much anyone who knows me and knows anything of my story will know how faith is an important thing to me, and faith has been an important thing that has got me through so much. And so for me, you can take those two first steps, but when you take the third step, it's like it multiplies the power of the whole thing exponentially. Because you see, for me, when I lay down what I can't control, I don't just put it in a biscuit tin. I actually give it to God. And that looks as practical as me saying, okay, God, I recognize I can't change these things. So I'm just going to lay them down right now, and I'm going to refuse to carry them. And I'm going to refuse to carry the weight and the burden of the stuff I can't control. And I'm just going to give it to you. And every time that stuff just creeps back into my mind, which it does tend to do, I just hand it right back to God again and say, no, this is not mine to carry. This is yours to carry, God, because I can't control that. And so today, the one coping mechanism in one simple line that I'm sharing with you is do what you can, give God what you can't do, and trust Him to make a way.